Today the topic I'll be addressing, because I'm a fusion tech artist and also creative director of Meta Visionaries. So we will be going over ideas of metaverse, okay? But from a very space and frontier tech angle, because in the future, or I would say the recent future, we've been seeing a lot of different new initiatives, okay? Related to space. Space is the industry that we want to be involved with. So this talk we will be covering, as most of people who are here understand the importance of the AI in general, okay? And then we will be going over the active materials of the spacesuits. Why spacesuits now, right? Because spacesuits is one of the topic that is really the hook. You really want to be involved with what's happening in the space industry. Not only if you're not working as a team, right? And then the third thing that we will be going over is the overview effect. Now, why the overview effect? Because, again, space is the topic that you want to know. So today the idea is not to just talk about space in the general, because space is something that we think it's beyond us, okay? It's nothing that we can relate to, but we will be talking about through the lens of AI, NFTs, metaverse, and so on. And then obviously the design is a very abstract idea. Space can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but space can also mean a space that you build over time, okay? It can have a metaphorical meaning. Space is something that you can get attached to. Space is something, it's a mental space, okay? This is a physical space, there is a mental space, there is a space that is beyond, right? So a lot of different ideas of space can come together if we can think from a different angle. That there is a bridge, you have to make a bridge. Today, nothing is possible if you're not thinking interdisciplinary. And that's what that we are going to cater today, that space applications is something that you need to be familiar with. And this is one astronaut in space, just lying around. And what do we think about this image? It's that we human beings need to be delighted in this space, right? The initiatives of SpaceX, what Elon Musk is doing, even Jeff Bezos, you know, he is working on a lot of different projects related to off-world lunar mining. So something you need to know, because every industry, and this is that I'm telling very openly, in fact, any industry that is related to science, engineering, art, obviously space sciences. And why metaverse and space? This is one topic that we have to really delve into. Now these three things that I have written here, art, space, and metaverse. These are the three different things which are going to eventually narrate what human identity feels like for the next generation. Because we as spacelings are going to have a new sense of identity. And this sense of identity is going to be different. Think about the metaverse, space, and art. We have this $5 trillion industry alone for the space. And then for the metaverse, it's even building. So you can't just say that it's this much, it's just building and there's no end to it. But one thing that we all need to just know, one word if you need to know, is the interdisciplinary, right? Because art, space, and metaverse, these three create a triangle. And anything that if you one thing that I want to really talk about is the role of creative thinking. Why creative thinking? Because when we talk about space, when we talk about art, when we talk about metaverse, we have to think about why we are building all this. It has to do with the consumer culture. At the end of the day, it has to speak to the mass audience. It can't be something that space is doing in its own bubble, art is doing in its own bubble, and metaverse so on, right? Now, space cultures is something that we are all familiar with. We have all heard the idea of space one way or the other. We have seen projects going into space, like space installations. We've seen lights and, you know, very immersive stuff happening, the crazy stuff happening, the kind that you see in the space movies happening in space one way or the other. But the important question is, what is this art doing in space? Or how we to make actually sense to what's happening on the Earth. Okay, these are a few examples where you see the astronauts in the space, and there are space installations here and there. Like this is actually a mummy which was 3D printed and left in the space, and now it's still there. So because of the environment, it's getting certain effects on the artifact, and it just tells you what the microgravity environment is doing. So based on the algorithm that you put in the metaverse and the artwork that is in the actual space, is going to create new forms of information that you can access in the future, and then create new predictions about human beings' ultimate space travel plans. Even bureaucrats at NASA have a lot of plans that we already know. And the off-world hydroponics growth projects that we're now hearing about, the colony of Mars. The VR is integrated well with the system that is out there in space. Now, space is a topic that is really underestimated. Why? Because we think that it's something that only NASA can do. It's only something that Blue Origin can do. But if we are versed on what this industry actually means, then we can try and create a link and find a gap for ourselves. Some of the other installations, projects that we see are seen, artworks being displayed. We all love immersive art, but this kind of art, it's quite new. I mean, just by the fact that you see it's in the space, it's there, and it's breathing in a world that is untouchable. How do you respond to that idea? What does that mean, right? Another interesting thing about space is that anything that you send to the space is influenced by the microgravity effect. Now, microgravity in itself is something that we have certain, you can say, we have certain other kinds of elements that affects anything that is not efficient here is much more efficient there. Now we have examples from not just science, not just art, we have from mechanical industry as well. Brands like Rolls-Royce, like the car brands, are now sending their experiments to space. Now this just tells us that anyone who is not thinking about space in the next upcoming years is the industry which is going to be left behind. Just adapted. Space is something that we have to think about actively as well. Now, coming back to the same question again, what will delight human beings in space? Another question that we usually think about is human identity. What does it mean, and how do we navigate the idea of human identity in the future? One way it can do this is through the spacesuits. Spacesuit is something that we will eventually need if we want to do the space travel, and if space are interested in the space travel, but I am, and this is something that we think about. How do we perform there? But what will be our spacecraft, and how will we perform in the sense that there are so many cultures. Will it be the same spacesuit for everyone? Like the image that we see of the NASA astronaut wearing this really huge, tiny spacecraft is the questions that we think about. It's not functional because you need to be really fit to be performing that. And these images that I show you, I'm sure all of you must have seen in the sci-fi films. But really, there's a science behind why the spacesuit looks the certain way. And there are certain areas within this spacesuit where we can add or remove the AI and make it something that can be integrated in the metaverse. And that's why I think the spacesuit becomes one of learn how to navigate the sense of human identity and how we can navigate the sense of collectiveness and cultural sense in the space. Because if something is very mundane, if something is same for everyone, then it becomes almost boring. At certain point, we will start thinking, what will keep us to the space? Even if we go to space, how much time we can survive there? How do we create the social boundaries, social behavior, and how do we create interest for ourselves? This idea of overview effect. And they also talk about how it's such a huge challenge, almost like you're putting an extra pressure on your body to survive in such an environment. And that's why I think it's such a revolutionary concept, that at one hand you are talking about the identity in something that we don't see, at the moment through a spacesuit, right? A spacesuit is a thing where you can add AI. There can be a system where the food and how much food you need without moving your hands can only be possible through the AI technology we have today. It is only possible through the tools that we have today that we can think about identity from the sense of functional human nature. And for this to perform, I'm working with Meta Visionaries, the idea is to work with such technologies which not only has biology in it, it's like a fashion design. So how do we integrate the fashion with the science, with the biology, and making sure that these astronauts who now have a metaverse to train by can have a perfect environment in space to operate in the best way possible. Now this is some of the history and how we see that evolution of the spacesuit itself has been happening over the years. And there has been certain active materials. Because we work with the frontier tech, active materials is something that is integrated within your forearms of the spacesuits, of the latest spacesuits that we're now talking about, because we are thinking about the space travel. And these active materials, because it has compression materials, it allows the certain bodily adjustments that allows you for a smoother space travel. And for this project, we did the research with the team of NASA, and we even had people from Blue Origin who came together thinking about how to make the spacesuit more accessible. This kind of technology, which is hard to understand because obviously we're living on Earth and we have so many issues of the Earth that we are not thinking about space, right? But for this to happen, we have to think about what materials and what is the physicality of the materials that we can integrate today. And I'm not talking about tomorrow, I'm not talking about yesterday. Can be integrated with the AI in your research. It's a very interesting technology. It's like a microbot that is crawling on your skin. And this microbot gathers the data of your body temperature, of your emotions, and emotion mapping is a huge subject today. Emotion mapping is something that tells, like if you're 20% happy, 50% sad, and this is the same data, by the way, that you get on your Facebook when you like something and when you comment on something. So Facebook knows how you feel about a certain ad. So it will really help us when we are in space. Again, why we are talking about space through the lens of AI? Because this is going to immensely change how human beings operate, how human beings dress, how human beings think that they look like and they want to look like, right? Because today I'm here wearing this attire. I think we all had this idea that we had to wear a coat. So it's almost like a uniform, but we all have a certain customization. So the same idea goes for the space. How do we think fixtures? One thing that our industry is not focusing on at the moment is not incorporating the physical objects with the AI. We have all heard that ChatGPT is working really good. We have Diffusion AI, Midjourney doing all the artworks for us. But we're not thinking about the real sense of identity in its physicality. And that can only happen when you think about the clothing and fixtures and even the body sculptures. Because why am I bandolier or you're wearing like a environment on top of it? So that's why it becomes a fixture. Now human interaction sensors is something again that you might have heard of in another word, which is a chip. Like Elon Musk is working on it, right? But then how do you integrate an AI chip in it and make it accessible for an astronaut who is training himself and getting ready for the space environment? It becomes a mass, accessible item. We all think about, like, we all say that no, it's not going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. But it will happen because already these technologies exist. People are working on this collaborative effort, and they're working on these physical objects, which not just include these, small fixtures, microbots, which are on your clothes, but it makes your spacesuit functional, but then also allows you to. We all have seen Dune's still suits. It's another example of how it can create a sense of identity. Obviously, this was a film, but it's just an example of how this would feel in the actual space. Now here what you see, it's quite interesting because when I came across this research, this is by, Neri Oxman, the scientist who was working on, and she was also an innovator. She was working on wearables that you need, that can store all the healthy proteins that you might need when you're traveling in different environments of the space. Like, let's say if you want to go to suborbital plane, you might need certain level of oxygen, you might need certain level of environment for you to survive. And it's different if you go beyond that. So if you have a wearable designs which are again possible through metaverse, which is again possible through 3D printing, and then also you cannot do this. Someone who is just an artist can also not do this. You have to be collaborative with people who are from different fields and design something like this that can help you in navigating the idea of space travel. Again, more example of how the astronaut's helmet can be reinvented. It can be made out of the recyclable material, again a very sustainable initiative, but also at the same point it can include the frontier tech. This is one of the artworks that I personally did. It's like from the sketch to the actual artwork that represents the compression material. Obviously it's like a 3D avatar. It's a fictional character that I designed for a campaign, but it showcases her costume, her spacesuit that has all the ducts, which visualizes how the spacesuit would look like for us to sustain in the different harsh environments of space. And I'm not talking about the astronauts here. We're talking how would we make it more fun for ourselves. Now, cultural spacelinks is a very unique concept, which we also turned into NFTs for Meta Visionaries. And this showcases the different identities that we wanted to represent, that we wanted to showcase through the spacesuit designs that I've just been talking about. Because again, we can do it through so many different things, we can talk about so many different stuff, but through this cultural uniformity, through this globalization and bringing in within the subdomain of the spacesuits. Another interesting thing that we have been doing is interpretation and semiotics, and we've been putting this together in the artworks that I've been working on for the past 4 to 5 years. The idea was to represent cultures in space. Because the idea of space is so new, it's important that we think about different cultures. Arabic culture, Muslim culture, Hindu culture, UAE, every different culture, but we can represent so many different cultures, in space. And that just gives us the starting point of how it should look like, how it should feel like. This project we did with the NASA chief scientist, Dr. Tara Rutley, who I've collaborated with to create these visuals of spacesuits, and I even designed a custom spacesuit for her. That's her in the image. And the idea was to work with NASA on how to make the spacesuits custom and how to make the spacesuits functional and custom. So this is her, and then the second artwork represents the JWST telescope. That is going to change how we look at things. Obviously, it's already launched. This artwork was done as the campaign poster when it was launched. So the idea was to talk about the technology which is going to change everything, from resolution of the artwork to how it will be perceived. And that's why the idea of spacesuits, I think I'm really excited about this, because the space traveling is not a concept for the use of metaverse and AI. Now, raising awareness through art is something that we've been hearing about, especially in the Web3 space, because we all want sustainable projects. We all want projects that support a social cause. So this project that includes the cultures. This is here the culture of the Turkey is represented. So the idea was to bring together different cultures. Like here you see Qatar's. Another interesting thing that we've been working on through Meta Visionaries is the idea of emotion mapping. Now, emotion mapping is something that through the camera that we use every day, Zoom, it's again a new frontier tech that we use every day. It's supposed to tell you as a general data that you must have of yourself, that are you 20% happy today or are you 50% sad? And that's already something that internet has the data of you about, but you don't have it. You don't know this stats and how you can use it for your own advantage. You don't have it, we have the health app, but we don't have the emotion app. So this project that we did turned the human faces into humanoids, and it told you like how you were feeling that day. Again, the robot that you see on the right, it's actually supposed to tell you that it moves with your face, and it tells you how you're feeling that day. So again, a very important technology. And this project was done 2 years back, so yeah, it's a bit old. Now this interesting thing that we can do same with the materials that we have. So we have already talked about 3D rendering, how important it is to link the metaverse to the space and spacesuits. But then what we can do for the physical world. I mean, we're all living on the earth. How do we make it more interesting for ourselves? We are all lovers of art. How do we express ourselves? So for that, I'm present in the metaverse as the 3D printed objects. And these 3D printed objects were again talking about the space. It was talking about the light pollution and how light pollution is affecting different species. Different species like fireflies, bats, and moths. And what you see here are the characters that were designed from sketch to 3D rendering. I was doing the 3D creative direction, which shows that how, like, using the data, like the scientific data on these species, and just they are getting extinct. How do we talk about it? How do we bring attention to it? So to address that topic, this project we did, it's a very creative project just because, you know, it involves that fictional element. We were turning these species into almost sentience. And sentience means that someone who is really sensitive to an idea. So the idea of sentience came into being. So here we see like the final rendering, which was 3D printed, and another important thing where we are today, how we are talking about the space today, we actually sent some of our work through SpaceX Mallet 2 project, which just happened, and we sent our artworks, our music to the actual space. So what you see on the screen is the image from our latest venture with Meta Visionaries, where we sent our artworks, our music based on the certain AI algorithm that we sent. And it's quite interesting because the Earth, we have kind of figured it out, but Earth is not efficient for certain experiments. If we want to work on immune cells, if we want to work on cancer cells, or any that kind of research, then it's better to just send your work, your experiments, your research to the International Space Station. And that's why we have a separate space for these kind of things in those kind of projects. So yeah, and now coming back to the metaverse, so we have a metaverse shift. This is entertainment, I mean the education plus entertainment. Anyone can join in here, by the way. We're hosting some lectures. If you're interested in science, engineering, art, we're doing regular meetups there. It's just like any other metaverse, but here we're talking about education. And then we send from within the dome that you see, it's in the metaverse. So whatever we work on, whatever experiments that we're working on, we can send directly your experiments to space. Now this brings accessibility to anyone who has an idea, who is working on the origin, right? So this just brings a lot of general interest. Now this suddenly makes it more real, because now you're not saying, oh, this is something that is related to space and this is not possible. But now it is possible. And interesting thing is, there's a lot of people who are talking about the metaverse industry, how it's just booming. So we already have the interest. It's just that we need to tell these people that you can now use the metaverse with the idea of space. And you like to talk about the innovation and just having those kind of dialogues, you can visit here. And this is the actual image of the cube that we sent to space. This is actually the AI box that I was telling you about. This is the AI box which has custom code written, and you can add anything in it. Obviously it has a certain kind of weight, you can't exceed it, but you can send anything in this, and then you can send it to the space. So you can see an astronaut in the so this way you can send anything that you're working on. It can be a new idea or anything, and we can send it. So what we've talked about is the actual innovation lab that needs to exist on Earth. It should have access to 3D printing, it should have access to additive manufacturing, it should have access to Oculus headsets, obviously because we're talking about metaverse. And then we connect it through the AI box that will go to space through SpaceX, or meditation is happening, where the dialogue is happening, where the collaboration is happening. And you get access to all of these people who are from the aerospace engineering, who are from, they are astronauts, they are the people who have had research at NASA. So you get access to all of those people who can tell you how to use your experiment with the right kind of, and sometimes you think that, oh, this might not have an implication, but there is always an implication when it comes to space. But it is relatable to any kind of industry, even if it's fashion, even if it's aerospace engineering, even if it's biology, even if it's art. It's relatable to all of those things. Even astronauts training is happening in the metaverse. It's quite efficient because it requires a lot of resources for us to be sending the astronauts into space, or to be simulating an environment that can, allow them to operate in a way that they know how to perform in the actual sound and so on. It allows us to save a lot of resources. So yeah, this is what I've been working on, and I'm happy to talk more about any kind of frontier tech, and you guys are most welcome to visit the Meta Visionaries, and yeah, let me know if there's anything related to science, art, or innovation that we have an idea about, and I'm happy to talk more about. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Are there any questions for Ayesha? We have Mike here.
Yeah, just a normal question. It's amazing work that you've been doing. That's first thing. Second one is, you mentioned about this metaverse and space. So, is it something like which is similar to the, for the pilot training they use the flight simulator to have the real feeling? Because recently I'm connected with one pilot who was saying the same thing and flight simulation things. Is it similar to that kind of things?
Yes and no, because it's similar because yes, we're working on an environment that will allow the training to these astronauts. But at the same time, it's not the same because we have a bunch of other frontier tech that no one else is thinking about, which I just mentioned. The additive manufacturing that allows you to print literally anything, from fashion to the chair that you're sitting on. So having the access of the physical, and they are great. They will tell you everything about what's happening, happened from Big Bang to now, but they have no idea about the Web3 and stuff. This is where the connection happens. This is where the collaboration can happen, right?
So you'll be making much more excitement, maybe the other aspects,
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Any other question for our space explorer? Yeah, we have another question. And by the Murphy's Law, it's the farthest from the first question, but we'll be patient.
Hi, my name is Uni. I'm from California, and I usually run every Saturday where there's a NASA JPL around there. I run there every day, and so you mentioned about there's a physical campus that we can meet up. Where is it, and when can we meet?
Yeah, so we're working on a bunch of different innovation labs. First of all, great question. We are building on a lot of different kind of platforms that can operate as a lab, because the idea of lab itself is something that we can think about, like what does that lab do, how much equipment we have, what are the facilities, right? So on. But so far, because we were working with FIFA World Cup, we just did a project with them. So we did a lab in Qatar University, but now we're building more and more labs. It's going to be a global phenomenon where there is a bunch of labs around the world, and it's like a network in itself. So that obviously physically we need to provide accessibility. And the next lab we're building in Saudi Arabia, because UAE is obviously behind in the space side, right? So we're targeting the Middle East, so Qatar and now Saudi Arabia, and then so on. We're also working on one in the London. So far we only have the Qatar one, and we've started to bring together, and we've even sent some of the experiments from students. We did a competition, GSSC, we selected a few, and then the best ones got to space. So this is how we're operating. I mean, it's still a start, so we're expanding, but yeah, so far we just have one fully operable lab.
Thank you, Ayesha, very much. And now I want you to stay on the stage, because you see what we have there, a space suit and an astronaut there. So I asked the guys from the floor, can you speak up the mic, please? To help us bring the spaceman. Can we take the spaceman? Hello, guys. Do you hear me there? Astronaut guy. Hello, man. Hello from the... Bring him in a minute. Now. We need him here for a photo. But as we wait for the astronaut, come here. You'll take photos later. Please, make sure to visit the main stage, because the main stage has the continuance of the program now. And we will not continue until we get the spaceman here. Do you agree, Ayesha, with me?
For sure.
What a coincidence. This is a coincidence, or universe is working with us on getting the astronaut here? Please, spaceman. Please, one round of applause for the spaceman, please. And now, one iconic photo of Ayesha and the spaceman. We were talking about the space. Did you just landed? Yeah, he just landed from the space. Look at this. I have to be on that photo also, you know. Not two photos, videos, yeah. Video. Okay. Everyone, please, a round of applause for Ayesha and for our spaceman to the moon and back. Thank you very much. Stay with us on Iowa stage or go to the main stage. But we have very interesting conversation here. So guys, I hope you hear me there in the lobby, in the hall. We have both next lecture here, and we have it also on the main stage. So please proceed there or stay here, because we have one interesting person now coming to the stage. So next we have Cedric Ming, a senior legal, regulatory and compliance associate of EY in Switzerland. He's also a co-founder and vice president of the